Hi, my name is Deb Barney and I'm from Aussie Maille, and today in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how you can create our Inner Sanctum chainmail pendant. Alright guys, let's get started. Here is a finished piece that we'll be completing today. So to complete this pendant, for the chainmail part of it, you're going to need in 20 gauge AWG, which is 0.8mm diameter wire. You're going to need 92 4.50mm ID rings, so 92 of those, and these ones are 4mm ID, and you'll need 46 of those rings. You'll also need one of these large rings. This is our stainless steel closed ring. It has a wire diameter of approximately 3mm and an inner diameter of 34mm, so you'll need one of those. You'll also need something to attach your pendant to your necklace. So we've chosen to use a 16 gauge AWG 1.2mm wire diameter ring with an inner diameter of 5.5mm ID. You'll need two beads. We're using two 8x10mm faceted rondelle beads. So two of those beads. A head pin, big enough to go through both of your beads. A necklace of some sort. This is our imitation leather necklace. So you need all of those to make, look at the components to make the pendant with. Tools you'll need, quite possibly wire cutters depending on the length of the head pin that you use. A pair of round nose pliers to make the loop with, and of course two pairs of smooth jawed pliers to make the chainmail with. So we're using pliers from our Xuron range today. So this one here is our chisel nose plier, and this one is our short nose plier. To start this pendant, we need to make a piece of full Persian 6-in-1. So to begin that, I'm going to close up 4 of our 4.5mm ID rings, and then on an opened ring of the same size, I'm going to pop all 4 of those rings that we've just closed. Close that ring up and repeat with a second ring through the same path, so that we've got a chain of 2, 2, 2 in our 4.5mm rings. Okay. And then once I've done that, I'm going to take up a twist tie. If you've got a twist tie or a piece of wire or even a paper clip handy, feed it through one end of your chain. It gives it a handle to hold on to. It just makes things a little bit easier if you've got one. So what I'm going to do now is, just like we're going to start Byzantine, we're going to flip our end rings to either side, pinch them between our fingers, separate those rings there on top, and then with an opened 4.5mm ring, I'm going to come in and I'm going to scoop up these 2 rings that are here, the ones that we folded back. So just like I'm starting Byzantine. So put one ring through there, and then take up another opened ring and feed it through the same path. Now these rings are very large for Byzantine, so this first bit is a bit messy, but it does tighten itself up as we go along. Okay, so our weave currently looks like this at the moment. Like I said, it's a little bit messy. Okay, that's what it currently looks like, but don't worry, it'll fix itself all up in a minute. So with those 2 rings there on the end, we're going to take up another open ring, and we're going to feed that through those 2 rings. But before we close that, we're going to flip our work just a little bit like this, and we're going to feed that opened ring through the 2 rings below that are forming the V. Can you see that? So we're just going to go through that V, and we're going to close that ring up so that our work now looks like that. So you can see, let me just hold it this way, this will be a bit easier. There we go. So you can see the ring that we've just placed is this one just here, how it's gone through those two rings on the top, but we've brought it down and it's gone through the V that's down there underneath. So we're going to repeat the same on the other side of our weave. So with an open jump ring, you go through the two rings that are on top, and we sort of swing our work up a little bit, and we go through both of those rings in the V below. Okay, so just straight through that V, and then we close that ring up. Okay, and our work looks like this. Okay, so our next ring is actually going to go, we're going to separate those two rings on top, and our next ring is going to go through those two rings that are underneath. Okay, so just through those two rings, nothing else. So take an open ring, separate that pair of rings on top so you can see the rings underneath, and scoop up that pair of rings, close, and repeat with a second ring. Okay, so our work is back to looking like this again, which is where we were just a minute ago. So our next ring, remember, we're going to put through these two here on top, and we're going to bring it around so that it then comes through these two rings here on the side that form the V. So to do that with a ring, take up an opened ring, go through those two rings on top, and then swing it down so that it goes through the V underneath. And close it up. And we need to repeat that on the other side of our weave. So with a second opened ring, open it up, feed it through those two rings there on the top, and bring it down so that it goes through the two rings that form the V underneath, and close it up. Okay, so our work now looks like this, and where I've got the awl is where we position our next two rings. So again, taking up a ring, opening it up, going through not the first rings but the second ring, so separating those first rings out and going through the second rings, picking both of them up with a single ring, closing that ring up and repeating with a second ring. Okay, so our work now looks like this. Our next rings are going to go through the two top rings. So taking up a ring, opening it up, going through that top ring, twisting it down so it goes down through the two V's that are formed, or through the V, the two rings that form the V, straight underneath. Close that up. Okay, and we need to repeat on the other side of the weave. So going through those two rings on the top again, bringing our ring down and our work up so that we can feed that ring now through both of the rings underneath that form the V. Okay, now we keep going like this until we've made a full Persian piece that fits inside of our large ring. So just keep adding it in until it fits inside this ring here. So it doesn't have to be an exact fit, and almost to the, so that the end comes around and touches our ring over there. So continue making a full Persian piece this long so that it fits inside, and I will meet you back here to show you what you do to join your full Persian piece together. You can see here that I have completed the full Persian piece long enough so that it almost reaches once I put it inside the ring. Okay, so what we've got here is approximately 22 of these units here. So 22 of one of these units. Okay, so once you've removed the twist tie from the end, you're going to go back to these beginning rings and open one up, and following our weave very carefully so that we don't twist it, we want to bring the other end around and we want to join through those two end rings there. Okay, close that up. Okay, and we want to do the same with the second ring. So again, find the beginning, if you can. It's here somewhere. Always when you have to open a jump ring is when you can't find where you joined it. Okay, there we go. So opening that up, and again attaching it through the end pair of rings. Okay, so our work currently looks like this image, or like this. And then taking up another opened ring. Now to keep in pattern, we need these rings here to be on the outside of these rings that are here. So this can be a little fiddly. They don't want to stay where they're supposed to stay. They're supposed to sit one on either side. And this ring here, we're going to run through the middle here. So we can get this, just this ring here on the outside to go across. Okay, we're going to split this through the middle. Going to pick up that first ring only of our pair. Then we're going to pick up the two middle rings and then pick up the other ring of our pair and come out through the middle. Now we haven't finished yet. We're going to swing it down and go through those two rings that form the V underneath, and then we're going to close that up. Okay, so this is the ring here that we've just positioned. You can see we've got no ring on the other side. So you just need to double check that all the rings are following the pattern, which they are. So then we go to the other side of our work. Okay, and we do the same again, only this time it's a little bit easier because we've got all the rings in place. So we want to go this time through just these two rings here, bring it around, and then we want to pick up all four of our rings here, but we want to go down underneath that ring that's on top. Okay, so I'll just show you that again. Okay, so we need to keep the pattern that's already in place. So to do that, we're going to go through just these 2 rings over this side. We're going to swing our work around. We're going to go through between these 2 rings here so that we're popping in underneath, but we're going to go through and we're going to make sure we scoop up all of these 4 rings here, come out the other side and join it up. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, it is a little tricky, but if you sit there and follow the pattern, you'll be able to see what needs to be done. Now, because the 20 gauge is so hard to see and the joining of the ends of the Persian is a little tricky, I just wanted to show you how to do this using bigger rings. Okay, so I've got 2 pieces of Persian here, but we can just pretend that this is the full piece, come around. This is the end that we finished on, and this is our starting end. So we want to remove the twist tie from our start, and we want to align these rings or these pieces so that our V's are pointing in the same direction. Okay, so you can see here that the V's on this side, so these rings here in the middle, they're pointing to my left, and the V's on this side are pointing to my right. So we want to make sure that they all point in the same direction. So just keep turning your work until, or one piece of your work, until they line up. So you can now see that all the V's are pointing towards my left side. Okay, all my V's are pointing to my right side, which is pretty much the way we want it to be for this. Okay, so now we're going to open up these rings here and we're going to join them to this side over here. I'm just going to put that down. So remember, with our V's pointing to the right, so that our last rings, or our first rings really, we take these and we open them up and we attach them to the other end of our piece. Now we want to keep this pattern correct, so you can see in order to do that we need to attach this ring so that it sits on the outside of the previous rings that are forming the V. Now they may move around, which they're going to do, but that's ultimately the position that we want them in if we can get them to stay there. So you've got one opened and joined, so we just take up the other one, find the opening, or find where the cut is, okay. And again, making sure we've got it all lined up properly, that we haven't twisted our work. Join it through the last 2 rings that are lying flat there. Okay, so our work looks like this, but remember we want these rings on the outside so that V pattern stays the same. Alright, so now we need to put a flat lying ring in here. I'm going to do this with a different colour ring just so you can see where this needs to go. So again, we've got to make sure that these rings are on either side. It's going to be tricky, but if you do go work slowly, take your time, you'll be able to get it. So we want this ring to go between the middle here. We also want it to pick up all 4 of the rings that form the V. We need to go straight through the middle of all those rings, making sure that we've got each of these rings that we just joined sitting either side of the previous. And we bring that out again, making sure it's through the middle of those 2 rings there. We haven't quite finished yet, we've got to bring our work around, and we want to go through the V that's formed in the other piece that sits below. So through the V there, So you can see that it's sitting on top. Each of these rings here is sitting on top of the previous. That's sitting on top of the previous. So once we've got that in place, we just need to close that up. Okay, so you can see now that that piece is sitting in place. It's sitting underneath this ring here, sitting on top of this ring here, just like the same pattern. And you can see that we've got half of the V going in there properly, that this end is on the inside and this end is on the outside. So just look carefully at work, make sure that it's following all the patterns that it needs to be following. And once you've got that in place, we just need to pop one on the other side now. Okay, so taking up another opened ring, and this one we're going to feed to do it the same way. Okay, we're going to go in between these two rings here, just like this one is, going through there, and we're going to pick up all 4 of these rings here. Okay, all 4 of these rings that are standing up, we need to get all 4 of them, and we need to pop out the other side. And as we come down and around, we're stippling our work around, our ring just naturally goes into the V of the unit below, into the V rings of the unit below, and then we bring it all around and we close it up. Okay, and now just checking our work to make sure that it's all in pattern. Looks good so far. You can see that the green rings are following the patterns of the rings on either side. Looks good on all sides. So that's it. So hopefully that's helped you with the joining of the full Persian. It is a little fiddly, but it's not, you can do it if you give it a little bit of patience. Pay special attention to the patterning of all the rings. Okay guys, I hope that helped. To attach our full Persian piece to our ring, we're going to use the 4mm ID rings. Now what we need to do is we need to feed that through just these 2 rings that form each section of the Persian. So we want to go through there, and we have to open these up quite large, a lot further than you would normally open them up, in order to go around the large ring. And then once you've got that ring in place, just close your ring up. So there's 2 of these rings per segment of the full Persian. Again, you open your ring up quite a lot larger than you normally would. Still not distorting the ring out of shape though. This time feeding it down through just those 2 rings in that segment and carefully closing it up. So you just want to keep double checking both sides to make sure you're not picking up any of those extra rings in the middle. We just want to pick up the 2 outside rings. So again, opening it up much further than we normally would, popping it through each segment of full Persian and attaching it to the large ring. And you just need to do that all the way around until you've joined every segment of full Persian. So just take your time with that, make sure that you get it in there properly, that you're not accidentally scooping up any of these rings, these middle rings, the V rings. We only want the rings on the outside of our full Persian. Okay, so again, open it up quite wide, go through those 2 rings there on the Persian and around the large ring. Very carefully close it back up so that you don't distort the shape of your ring, and repeat with the second ring. So you need to do that all the way around until you've joined all of those segments, So I'll just go and do that now, and I will meet you back here when I have finished. So this is what your pendant will look like at this stage once we've gone through and joined all of the segment pieces to the large ring. So now we need to make the beaded unit that will hang down the middle. So grab your head pin, pop on your two beaded units, your two beads, sorry. Now, I'm not very good at making head pins, looped wire wrapped loops or anything like that. So whatever, if you got a technique in place, go for it. Otherwise, this is what I do. So I put my two beads on my head pin and then holding them down, taking my round wire pliers, my round nose pliers, I'm just going to push that back away from me. Okay, reposition my pliers at pretty much the smallest loop that I can make. Bring my wire back towards me. Again, reposition my pliers once more and bring the loop back around like that. Okay, and then once I've done that, I'm going to take this little tail bit and just wrap it around a couple of times. As I said, I'm not very good at this. Oop. You may be a lot better. In fact, you probably are a lot better. I'm just going to wrap that around a couple of times. A longer head pin probably would have made this a little bit easier. So wrapping head pins is not my forte, but there you go. So I've got myself a little bit of a wrap going on there. Squish that tail down so it doesn't jab into anyone too much. So that's really not very good, but you get the idea. Make yourself a beaded unit just like that. And then taking up your pendant, what we want to do is open up one of these rings that are here. Okay, doesn't matter which one it's going to be, just pick one. And open up one of those rings. Okay, there we go. Very carefully, because we don't want to knock this out of weave. Taking up your beaded unit, feed it onto the opened ring as best you can. There we go. And then gently close your ring back up again. Okay. Turn it around and there's your beaded unit. So if you can get a much better wrap or a much better loop than me, that would be great. So this then here becomes the center of your pendant. So taking up your opened 16 gauge ring, open that up quite a bit wider so that we can go around our large ring. So we don't want to pick up any rings here except for the large stainless steel ring. Okay, don't pick up any of the chainmail. And then before we close that up, thread on your necklace. And there you go. You're done. So this 5.5 is a tight fit. You may want to go, depending on your chain, a little bit bigger or a smidgen smaller. Really depends on your chain. There you go, a completed Inner Sanctum Pendant. So this is just the back. You can see the back where the bead is hanging through the loop there. and the front. There we go. All done. Alright guys, well that's it for the tutorial today. I really hope you enjoyed mailing along with me. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to give us a thumbs up here on YouTube, share our video or comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel here. Every bit of interaction we do have with you guys here on YouTube, it really does help us, and it'll enable us to continue doing these types of tutorials for you in the future. In the description tab below the video is the link to our online store where you'll be able to buy all the tools and components that we used in today's video. So pop along there and have a look, check out what we've got. Also in the description tab are the links to our Instagram and our Facebook pages. So if you want to share your pieces with us or any of the pieces that you've created from any of our tutorials, we would love to see what you guys are up to. So don't forget to tag us on Instagram or pop it up on our Facebook wall so we can have a look. Alright guys, so as I said, I really hope that you did enjoy this video today and that we will see you again sometime in the future. Bye!